All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich Celenza. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich Celenza Show. WTF are you talking about? What I want to get into today is relationships and how a lot of people have unrealistic expectations of what a real relationship should look like nowadays. I teach a program called Mastering Self-Confidence, and it's to help men find the woman or women of their dreams, even if they've been through a bad breakup or divorce. And this goes for men and women. And I think the thing is, a lot of us, especially middle age, I should say, are kind of caught up in a component where they think relationships should be like they kind of were in the old days, right? Or even women, a lot of times, like it's a joke, a princess, a Cinderella kind of story, or being swept off their feet, and all that's wonderful, and I get all that. But I think they think it's going to be as simple as it was for, say, their parents or their parents' parents, and it couldn't be further from the truth, because our lives have changed really entirely in probably the last 10, 15 years. It might as well, it really has nothing. If we went back to living like we did even 20 years ago, we would almost feel like it's prehistoric because of what social media and the internet has brought us. I really can't believe that people don't acknowledge this. And what had happened is now we're being cluttered, whatever, it's good or bad, by tons of people. We have access to thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of different people. We can reach out to whoever we want to a certain degree whenever we want, not saying they're going to respond back, but the truth is you can a lot of times get their attention. How would you have done that 20 years ago? Even, I went on another, I did an interview once, and she was talking about, how relationships should be. You should be, meeting men, going on a date. You should do this. She kept saying this. I'm like, what? Why? Why do we have to do that? That sounds like something we did in our past, right? And I talked about my parents. My dad owned a nightclub, but I remember my immigrant grandparents talking to my mother because my mother worked in the nightclub. They were appalled that even people were meeting in nightclubs back then, like strangers, dancing with them and then going home with them or going on dates with them after that. Because usually you had to be friends. You only dated family members that you knew or friends of other family members to kind of vouch for that person. So if you grew up in the 1900s, even in the 50s, whatever, that was kind of like how a lot of times people would meet each other, right? And then fast forward to the 70s when really that nightclub era boomed. And what was interesting is that's what I was being raised in, which is crazy in its own right. But that was the truth. So now people were all meeting strangers in different areas, right? They weren't just meeting them at a wedding, a family wedding, or a family birthday party, or a baptism, or a christening. And, we're going to meet the other side of the family. They have this guy for you. They have this girl for you. All that shit. That's gone. Now they're in nightclubs. You're meeting all different people, not only maybe from your city, but from your state, from different countries, right? So that was kind of a small type of thing, and we thought that was a big deal. Now let's fast forward, from the 70s to now. Now it's like that on steroids. It's a million times that, right? So that you have to realize that's going to affect your relationship. And if somebody still digs you, they're going to dig you. But don't also think they're not being bombarded, especially if they're attractive, I tell men. And even if the guys are attractive, by other women. And if they're women, other men, right? There's all this undertoning kind of bullshit going on, especially on social media. And don't think even if you're in a relationship or with a girl, they're posting pictures of their girlfriends, even posting pictures of you too. They're fishing for certain comments. They want to be liked. That's why they're posting it. They want to see comments that say, hey, you look pretty. That's a great photo. And don't get me wrong, there's other comments on there that are saying, hey, you look great, or, that's a beautiful place, great photo, different things, not just personal. But a lot of times, let's call it for what it is. If they're in a relationship or not, they're kind of exposing themselves publicly, and they want some type of response. Again, go back 20 years, you didn't have any of that shit. The only people that would see your wife, your girlfriend, were people that were local, right? If you had kids, they would see you at school, or your wife would see people at work, or the grocery store, the post office, whatever. It was local for the most part. That's who would see your wife or girlfriend, and same with you. If you're a dude, most likely. The only women you really ran across a lot of times, if you were in a relationship or married, if you went out to a bar with your friends, you'd see different women, or maybe your workplace or a gym or whatever. It's not like now. It's not like you go on a page and I could scroll through and see 1,000 women on Facebook, or go on a LinkedIn page and see 5,000 different people on there, men and women. I mean, the times are changing, right? And it's also interesting because even if you are with someone now, from a visual standpoint, you start seeing people how they have a lot of things in common. And you're kind of evolving. Everybody's evolving, and what's happening is a lot of times who you started off in this relationship isn't who you are now. The person you are with most likely started off a certain person, and they evolved, and they are not always who they are or who they were then and who they are now. Much different. They don't want to admit it. A lot of times people want to be like, oh my God, you changed. Yeah, no shit, they changed. Times are changing. The years change. Everything changes. What do you think? You're going to be stuck in the same mind, like the same frame of mind that I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago? It kind of reminds me, and I've done this on other podcasts with like my father, with a lot of things he does. He really is still caught up in the 70s, 80s. He's going backwards. He always talks about the past. He refused to use technology now. My mother, who was also kind of, I'm not saying caught up in the past, was very religious. She's got very kind of tech savvy, which I would have never expected. I would expect my dad, because he was always the guy who was hip and on, all that stuff. He refused to even use a GPS, so he can never go anywhere for the most part, anywhere different than where, outside his town. My mother learned, let's just say, GPS very easily on her phone. She goes everywhere now. She evolved. I'm just saying, you have two people, one kind of accepted the now, and one wants to still be kind of caught up in the past. But as far as, again, relationships, you having these expectations of them being a certain way, if you do want to be a certain way, like maybe you're caught up with, and I think that's a perception of how you think relationships a lot of times should be. And I goof around because I'm in Pennsylvania sometimes and I see the Amish and I'm like, if you want things to kind of be like they were then, go be an Amish, right? Like as a joke, because they're holding on to that. And I get that if that's what you want to do. But you can't a lot of times have it both ways either. You can't be the guy who says, you know what, when you're single, you're out there, fishing for women all over the place, texting your date, doing all this. Then all of a sudden you get into a relationship, and now now no one can see your girlfriend, or you can't do this, or now we can't do, now all the rules change. Well, the rules ain't changing for everyone else. I got a news flash for you. I don't care what you do. I don't even care if you say you're dating someone, you're like, hey, you can't even be on Facebook, or you better watch yourself on Facebook, or don't do this, don't do that. How long do you think that's going to last in this society? Especially if they're young. I don't care. You got Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. What are you, out of your fucking mind? You think people aren't going to be able to get to her, or she's not going to privately be able to get to whoever she wants to get to? You're kidding yourself. And here's the bottom line regarding, again, relationships. And I kind of had a discussion with someone last night who wanted to touch base with me regarding this. And I think a lot of times what happens to men and women nowadays, because there is a lot of people out there, right? Especially when you're first dating. And a lot of times people are losing interest, all right? It's just the truth. Or they're just, I'd hate to say it, a lot of times they're with you until they find something better. And you may be doing that to somebody as well. I wouldn't recommend it. But that is the case now. Because again, accessibility, I think that's the word, or access, obviously, to a lot of people, you have that. You actually even have that right to do that. You may or may not be doing that, but a lot of people that you maybe have dated in the past or are with now are doing a lot of things, maybe even behind your back you don't know about. That doesn't mean they're cheating on you. That doesn't mean they're searching or anything else. But they know in the back of their head they have that availability to do that, which is very interesting. And don't think they don't. That's my number one thing. But here's the thing. If someone truly likes you, right, they like you. And they want to spend time with you. You can immediately see them going out of their way to be with you. You just see it. You feel it. You know it. But then on the other hand, and I call it death spirits, because people become desperate, they start seeing the person they're dating, or maybe even they're living with, starting to separate from them. That doesn't, again, mean they're cheating. Who knows what they're going through in their life? But what you have to, again, have is a realistic, idea of what this relationship is or where it's going. Right? You have to be, and if you see those type of things, you have to confront that person. And the thing is, you don't want to chase that person, I believe. Because again, people, especially in this day and age, I tell people all the time, they are evolving. Things are moving so much quicker, especially for middle-aged men like myself. Younger people, I think, know this. At least my daughters seem to. Like, marriage is not the answer at a young age. Getting pregnant, not, doing that is. There's a lot of things I think they've seen over the years, and they see what's going on from a visual point. I don't care if it's TV, YouTube videos, on where a lot of things led. Right? Where I think a lot of us, when we grew up when we were younger, we didn't. I think pregnancy amongst teens is down more than ever. I don't know, that may have changed, but those type of things where younger people are a little savvy, they're smart, especially even my daughters will say men or guys or boys or whatever. I know what they want, or I know what they're doing, right? A lot of times when I think we grew up, we didn't know what each other was doing because, again, we didn't have a cell phone. We couldn't reach out to thousands of people. We didn't have access. They see a lot of how they act socially, obviously, on social media, these guys, if they want to date them or not, or they see their behavior. You're kind of exposing yourself, I always said, right? And again, when you're in a relationship, what's the expectation? And I think a lot of people get confused too, because when you go into relationships, one may be more religious than the other. One may be more sexually active than the other. One may want to travel more than the other. Or one may want to end up traveling. One all of a sudden may want to change their job. One may not want to live there any longer. Who knows what happens? Again, you have to have realistic, like really realistic, I guess I would say, how would I say this? Like a component to really understand the triggers there. I'm getting a little goofy there with that crazy shit, but all these things are happening, and you have to be realistic and accept them. Because it's happening, with or without you a lot of times. And a lot of men, I think, what happens to them, I can speak for them, is when things don't go their way, they start backpedaling and freaking out. They're a tough guy, right? They don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck what she does, or who cares. I'll just go out and do this, and I could do that. My feelings don't get hurt, all this. When it starts to turn and they get embarrassed or the ego's hurt, things change very quickly. You may not see that, but that's usually a lot of times what happens, especially. And women, on the other hand, too, when, and I can't speak for women, I'm not a woman, but I know just going through certain things, sometimes they are the first one to say, you know what, I don't like the way this relationship's going. And when they check out, they check out. When they emotionally check out, in my opinion, you're done. Usually. I mean, sure, they may come back, you may be married, maybe get married again, but at that certain time and place, a lot of times you have to be, again, be realistic. She is checking out on me. She is not giving me the attention. She's not doing what I want to do, and I'm not really doing what she wants to do. And you got to be honest. Again, that doesn't mean people are cheating on each other or they don't love you any longer. They just may be losing interest. Maybe not even in who you are, but that's probably part of it, but how you want to live and what you are doing, right? There's so many things that can turn on someone or off someone. It can even be your family members they're just disgusted with, and whatever. They may not like your friends. They may not like the way you snore all the time, or they may not like the way you eat. They don't like the way you act in front of people. They don't like how you change. Whatever the case may be, it starts to add on more and more and more. And if you don't nip that in the bud, and you can kind of tell when someone's getting pissy or when they're not, confront that person. Don't just think you could blow it off again. It's not usually going to go away. What's going to happen is it compounds, all these type of things. One thing aggravates you, then before you know it, another thing starts to aggravate you a little more, then the next thing aggravates you a little more. And again, you got to be realistic. There's tons of other people out there. There's 7 billion people out there. Half of them are men, half are women for the most part. There's a lot of people out there that I'm pretty sure, no matter if you're a man or woman, that somebody else would like to take your place. It's just the truth, or will take your place, right? So if you really want to keep a really good relationship with whoever you're with, you got to obviously be genuine with that person, but also understand you will never control what that other person does in their life. You may think you can, or you may install as much fear, and maybe in other countries they get, I think if they do certain things it's against the law and stuff, but in the United States, you can't even control what's 3 or 4 feet in front of you. You think you're going to control whoever you're with, man or woman, what they're going to do behind your back, or their feelings. You're crazy. I don't care if you got 1 kid, I don't care if you got 10. I don't care if you're a millionaire or a billionaire. I don't care how many things are tied in. You may stick together because of money or for kids or whatever. That doesn't mean you're happy either. So you got to realize that. But you're never going to control that person. Right? Again, be realistic to understand that. When you get married, statistically it's a 50-50 shot, they say. The truth is it's more like 65, I think 70 divorce ratio. When you really break it down, I think it's much, much higher. And if you include people moving in together or even having kids and then breaking up, I don't even know where that's at. So again, if you're getting married, be realistic. I'm not saying you're going into it saying, oh my God, I'm going to most likely end up divorced. Why would you get married then? But I would tell you to, one, get a prenup. I don't give a shit, man or woman, because you never know where you're going to end up. I don't care if you're the man again or the woman. I don't care what you got now or or any of that bullshit. And I talk about that in my program. I don't give a shit if you're the dude, you're poor, and she's wealthy. You should tell her, I'm going to prenup because I want to protect you, and it could be even her family's wealth. Show your value to her and say, listen, I'm not marrying you for money, but I plan on making my own money, or I plan on doing this. Now, if you are marrying her for money, that's on you. That's your own business. And same with women who marry men for money. But I would, no matter what, I think people need to understand that they have to protect themselves. Because when things go south, which most of the times they do, they're going to have their ups and downs. I don't give a shit who you are. You're going to run across tons of shit in your relationship. Not even what you two bring to the table, your craziness, but whatever else is going on. Especially every child you have is going to bring some type of chaotic type of situation into your life. And I don't mean chaotic isn't bad either. I mean just them having to be taken care of. Then you have your parents a lot of times. Then you have siblings on both sides. You have in-laws. You have friends. You have colleagues. You have, who the hell knows, sickness. You have all these things that are going to come into your relationship. If you think you're going to come unscathed, you're out of your fucking mind. So do you know how that person's going to handle that when that situation arises? No, you don't, because they never either been through it, right? Most likely, especially if you're younger, or say they have been through it, you may have not been there to see how they acted. And it still doesn't matter. You don't know what it is for someone to really lose a parent, hypothetically. How are they going to act? Is that going to crush them? Is it going to make them stronger? What are you going to go through if you have a sick child together? What's going to happen if this happens? I know a lot of these scenarios are kind of like analyzing it to death, and I hate people that overanalyze. I was one of those people, the analyzer. I said you should put an A on my chest because I was analyzing everything. But the truth is, you really have to understand, when you start a relationship, for the most part, the honeymoon phase, it is not going to be like that. That I can assure you. And as time goes on, all these different things are going to happen. Who knows how you're going to behave towards those situations? You may be like, oh, if this happens, I don't give a shit. Well, the truth is, you may give a shit a lot more than you think. That can even be you losing a job. Or you may be getting a job offer somewhere else and her saying, well, I don't want to go there. Well, wait a minute, we're married, or vice versa. Who knows again? Again, a lot of things we don't know how they're going to behave because we have not seen them go through it, but we haven't gone through it together either, right? And every day is a different day. Again, be realistic in your expectation of what this relationship is. It's really, I always say a lot of times relationships are just two best friends, really. I mean, when it comes down to it, you basically say, I'm going to revolve my life around yours, you're going to revolve my life around yours, right? And I'm going to put up with all your shit. You're going to put up with all my shit, right? I mean, I'm going to have patience to listen to all your bullshit, and I'm going to have patience to listen to all yours, right? And then we're going to fool around. We're going to have sex once in a while or whatever. I don't care how much you have sex. But when we're not having sex, I have to revolve my life around you and vice versa. That's the deal. Can you imagine making that deal with anybody else? No. I mean, even if you're with your parents, hypothetically, you love your parents, but you're like, I got to move on, I got to move out, right? Of course. If you have brothers and sisters you love or whatever, I got to move on, I got to move out. You're saying to this one person, you're basically, my life, I'm attached to you, almost like a magnet. We're attached. That's it. Every decision I really make, not that I have to get, your authorization, but I need your support most of the time. I can't just get up and leave and go do whatever I want to do. I can't come home really to a certain degree anytime unless you have an open marriage or an open relationship. Now that's different. But I'm saying a lot of people don't have that. So it's a lot to go through. And I don't care, because also one more thing is, I was going to say in this is, relationship-wise, is a lot of times you may be in different relationships with different women, and a lot of times you think it's going to be the same way when it is not. It's entirely different. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's horrific, sometimes it's amazing. You don't know till you go through it. And a lot of times you do find someone, you're like, oh, they're just like, I lost this one, and they were great, and they had this. Then you get in, and you're like, holy shit, was that brutal? Then you see somebody else who you think, wow, they're this way and that way. That's somebody I really wouldn't be attracted to. Then you start dating them, you're like, wow, this is really what I was attracted to. I was just kind of maybe afraid of that. But again, you got to be realistic. And I see these people, and I hate to bring this up sometimes, but like men or women that become abusive in relationships, and then the previous relationship, they're like, he was never like that with me, or she was never like that, or he was never, the woman will say he was never like that, never abusive. And even a dude, like you hear like a woman going crazy and beating up a man or whatever, and the guy's like, she was never like that with me. Well, maybe you didn't set her off the way this other person does. Just because they didn't do that to you doesn't mean they're not going to get in that situation with that person. So that means nothing to me, right? You can make somebody so mad that they do certain things. That doesn't mean you made them that mad, or maybe they had more patience with you, or maybe something else happened in their life and now they're this way. Again, they're evolving. It could be good or bad. When I say evolve too, a lot of times people got to realize they're not always evolving for the better. A lot of people spiral as they get older. It's not like they become wealthier. A lot of people become poor. A lot of people become, as they get older, alcoholics. A lot of people become drug addicts as they get older. Whatever they do. Again, you got to be realistic to think, if you're in a relationship, I'm not saying the odds of them maybe having some issues with alcohol, maybe drugs, or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. But my point is, and same to you, she may have to deal with your problems. That's probably going to maybe come up out of both of you. There's going to most likely be a problem. Now, it could be a mental issue. It could be depression. It could be a lot of things. You got to be prepared for that. So, again, have realistic expectations of what a relationship in this day and age is. Don't play stupid. It's not 1900, 1800, where something happens, you just went along your business and been like, oh, he's just this way. Oh, she's just that way. Good luck with that one. Takes, nowadays, patience. It's not there like it was years ago. Also, the fear of getting a divorce, going to hell, or your parents looking at you a certain way, or if you got divorced, it was the worst thing in the face of the earth, and all these things. Those days are gone, I can assure you. And if you even do find somebody who's very religious and you're very religious, it doesn't matter. I swear to you, it doesn't matter. Don't think that they are not going to evolve, and they may or may not change, even their religious views, political views, all that. All right. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for listening to my show. If you get a chance, check out my Mastering Self-Confidence program, the blueprint to helping men find the women or woman of their dreams. Also, I have a YouTube page, Rich Celenza. I kind of do all different things all over the country, showing people how to travel affordably. What else do I got? I got a bunch of shit. And obviously, you're listening to the podcast. Just Google my ass. I got books out. I got a bunch of crazy stuff. But all right, well, take care. And again, thanks for listening in, and I wish you nothing but the best.